Council on preparations for the 2023 general election. Court of Appeal dismisses suit by the Allied People's Movement seeking disqualification of Peter Obi as the presidential candidate of the Labour Party. On the interview segment for today, we will examine INEC, BVAS and the 2023 elections with immediate past resident electoral commissioner in Akwa Ibom State, Mike Igini, as our guest. Welcome to Politics Tonight. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the program. Now, Chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, has briefed the Federal Executive Council, chaired by President Muhammadu Buhari, on the preparations for the 2023 general election. The special advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, announced this after President Buhari arrived at the Council chamber. This is coming 2 days before an emergency meeting of the Council of State on Friday, convened by President Buhari to discuss the nationwide crisis arising from the new Naira shortage and petrol scarcity. The INEC chairman had met with the National Security Advisor, Babagana Monguno, and the Governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, Godwin Emefiele, to express concerns that the current cash crunch may affect the flow of logistics for the elections. Professor Yakubu is also expected to attend the Council of State's meeting alongside the Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba, to discuss the February 25 presidential and National Assembly elections, as well as March 11 governorship and state houses of assembly polls.
Council through all the preparations that we have put in place for the election and the few challenges that we are facing and the steps that we have taken to address those challenges. The first one is availability of petroleum products. We had a meeting with the National Union of Road Transport Workers, and they raised that as an issue of concern. Immediately after that meeting, we interfaced with the leadership of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. The second one is the currency issue. And again, we had an engagement yesterday with the governor of the central bank, and he assured us that the commission will not suffer any encumbrances on that score. Fortunately for us, all our accounts, national and state, are held by the Apex Bank.
All right. Meanwhile, former President Olusegun Obasanjo has expressed optimism that nothing will stop the February and March general election from holding. The former president spoke while hosting members of the Board of Trustees of the African Democratic Congress, ADC, at his penthouse residence located within the premises of the Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library at Abeokuta, Ogun State capital. Obasanjo stated this in the face of concerns by Nigerians that the elections might be postponed following protests in some parts of the country as a result of scarcity of the newly redesigned Naira notes and petrol. He noted that Nigeria is an interesting period and urged citizens to take the elections with all seriousness.
I hope nothing will intervene against that. In less than 3 weeks, we will be selecting a leader that will pilot the affairs of Nigeria for the next 4 years from May. And all of us in Nigeria, I came, as I said to you early this morning, I've been in Togo, Ghana, and Côte d'Ivoire from the beginning of the week, from Sunday. And they are as concerned about what happens in Nigeria as every Nigerian is. Even for them, Nigeria's election is of importance.
The Court of Appeal has dismissed a suit filed by Allied People's Movement, APM, seeking disqualification of Peter Obi as the presidential candidate of the Labour Party. A three-man panel presided over by the President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Monica Dongban, dismissed the appeal for lacking in merit as the APM lacked the local standing to initiate the suit. Justice Dongban ruled that the AMP has no business with how Labour Party elected its presidential candidate. The appellate court awarded a cost of 200,000 naira against APM in favour of the Labour Party and Peter Obi. Let's take a short break, and when we return, it will be time to speak with the immediate past resident electoral commissioner in Akwa Ibom State, Mike Igini, on INEC, BVAS, and the 2023 elections. Stay with us.
Nigeria needs focused leadership to take decisive action to end insecurity, reposition our economy for businesses to thrive, and restore total peace in the land. Tinubu is the right man for the job. Through innovation and technology, he will reposition Nigeria for businesses to thrive. Nigeria will export more and import less. Tinubu will reposition the agricultural sector for food security and improve farmers' welfare. Electricity will be reformed for a brighter Nigeria. Health, education, and housing will be more accessible and affordable. Nigeria will be transformed into an entertainment powerhouse, a home of sporting achievement, and a renowned tourist destination. Tinubu's government will build a Nigeria where we prosper together. He has done it before, and he will do it again for Nigeria.
For renewed hope 2023, vote Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Senator Kashim Shettima as President and Vice President of Nigeria. Vote APC.
My name is Kashim Shettima. I'm an agricultural economist by training, a banker by profession, and now a public servant by calling. I was the governor of Borno State for 8 years. In the heat of the Boko Haram, we set up an agricultural transformation committee. We crisscrossed the world and invested in the whole agricultural value chain. Lagos is the smallest state in Nigeria in terms of landmass, 3,577 square kilometers. But the largest rice mill in Africa and the third largest in the world is located in Imota in Lagos. That is the power of ideas. Bola Tinubu is an idea whose time has come. Let us vote for Bola Tinubu to be the president of Nigeria come 25th of February. God bless Nigeria.
Welcome back. You're still watching Politics Tonight, digging beyond the headlines. And now to our interview with the guest of the day. As of today, we have just 16 days to the presidential and National Assembly election on the 25th of February. Many Nigerians have expressed so much hope and optimism about the forthcoming elections as an opportunity to elect leaders that will commence the process of rebuilding Nigeria. And millions of citizens have been urged to collect their permanent voter cards, PVCs, and be ready to vote and determine elected leaders, because elections are now to be won and lost at the polling unit and no longer at wards, local government areas, and other stages or points of result collation, as severally assured by our guest on the program today. There are so many questions. Is the judiciary still the last hope of common party members over their preferred choice voted for in party primaries? And what do all these portend for the forthcoming elections? To examine all these issues is one man who opted to serve public interest generally rather than be a consultant to political parties who would have found his vast electoral knowledge useful and strategic to their campaigns. Is immediate past INEC resident electoral commissioner in Akwa Ibom State, Barrister Mike Igini. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, sir.
Thank you very much for having me, and good evening, Nigerians.
All right. It's 16 days to the conduct of the 2023 elections. How will you describe the process so far?
First and foremost, as Nigerians, all of us, we've been getting regular reports from the commission where I have worked. I left a couple of months ago. And as you noted in your intro, I have decided that for the public interest, that in line with admonition of Sapara Williams, that's lawyers, our knowledge, legal knowledge should be used for the service of our people and for the direction of our country. And so it is work in progress. But I think that very important as part of some of the remarks you made in your intro is the fact that you talked about hope, you talk about optimism about this forthcoming election. As a person who have worked for 10 years in INEC, and who have also, from a much younger age, witnessed elections in this country, there is no time that I've ever been as optimistic about what we're about to embark on in less than 60 days' time. And so hope is a very powerful bond to the human spirit. It's only those who are alive that hope belongs to. And in terms of optimism, I must say this here, that there is nothing on earth that the people who are determined to achieve something that will not be able to achieve. Particularly in a moment where we are going through different challenges in our country. At the moment, hope must be the battle cry of all who have a role to play in this forthcoming election, so that whatever we are going through today, we usher us a promising tomorrow. So for the election process, it is work in progress. We're getting daily reports. I am very happy that the reports we are getting are quite interesting. For those who have fears about the fact that the fuel scarcity, I think it's very clear that on election day, on the 25th of February, this month, Nigerians' vehicles are going to be at home. Nobody will be driving your cars on that day. It's only INEC vehicles that will be allowed to move around within the period where there will be restriction of movement on that very day. So I think that with what the INEC chairman reported in his briefing sometimes last week, having to meet with the GMD of NNPC, I think that with respect to fuel that people required, since it will only be INEC vehicle that will be used on that day. And in any case, having worked in the commission, we have never had a situation where we have to, or buses have to fill their vehicle, fill their tank twice in a day. No, they just have to fill their tank once. And I think that the fuel we have around and the commitment from NNPC that all their stations across Nigeria will be made available for INEC. I think that we have no problem with that. With respect to cash, which is what the chairman has spoken about, as a matter of fact, burying a few perhaps emergency that would have occurred, let it be known that the commission, since when we came on board in 2011, the commission have moved away from cash dealings. You know, everything is being done through banks. I recall that virtually all the staff that we paid, those for vehicle, for transporters in the last election and previous one, they were all paid through bank transfer. But however, there are some situations that will require cash. And as the chairman told every one of us, which we just said, interestingly, INEC is now account with the Central Bank of Nigeria, and I think the CBN governor had assured Nigeria. So I think that what should be focusing on right now, some of those last-minute dotting of the I's and crossing the T's in terms of the key stakeholders who have a role to play in this election. Never before have I had a hope as to the fact that Nigerians who are gearing up, fired up, who have made up their minds, they'll be out to vote on the 25th of February and on the 11th of March, respectively.
All right. In that regard, how satisfied are you with the way politicians have conducted themselves and carried out their campaigns for the elections so far?
Well, I need to say this here. There are certain things we cannot change at this point in time. I would say that with respect to campaigns, somehow, I mean, in terms of the key issues that should matter to the Nigerian people, have been well identified by the Nigerian people. The messages have been heard. It is for the Nigerian people to now file out on election day. And I must say this here, that on election day, Nigerians in their millions who are fired up, they don't need to go to INEC office on that day. They also they don't need to go to any political office of any party in Nigeria. The place of the citizen on election day is the polling unit. That is where they are going to file out to. It is not an election where people want to give order or things like that used to happen before, because I can see that right now people are fired up. There's anger in the land. There are so many reasons why people are fired up. You will observe that, I don't know whether Nigeria can share this observation. They can know this very well, that unlike before in this country, when we are going for election, by this time, people will be traveling out of the country, either going to neighboring country. Those from the south will be going to the north. Those from the north will be coming to the south, because everybody is scared. As I speak, and Nigeria can confirm this, there are no election tension-related issue at the moment, other than issue about scarcity, issue about Naira, which are not directly relating to election. This to show to you that Nigerian people have invested their future, their emotion, and they are ready. So in terms of campaign, they have done much of their campaign. What is now be left will be Nigeria coming out to vote on that day. I think the second question, I write out to that second question. Could you please come up again with that?
All right, let's discuss further. I know you have once said that Osun elections make it 105 elections where the BVAS has been used. And so, but recently, the Osun State Governorship election tribunal verdict raised some concerns about BVAS and overvoting. What is your view about the outcome?
First and foremost, I want to restate to the entire Nigerian public that, and of course, TV Continental, you know that I've always been part of effort to educate Nigerians on sound knowledge of democracy and democratic processes during when I was in office and after I left office, where we have been educating Nigerians. The BVAS is one of the innovations that the Commission developed following what happened with the corridor, which indeed a massive improvement in major technology that have been developed with the IRF and all other innovations to address historical challenges of election service delivery in our country, such that today the BVAS is designed to put the Nigerian voters at the center of our democracy and put contestants, candidates at the periphery on election day, so that the vote of the people counted at the polling units that will be transmitted on that day will be what determines who becomes what. So that today, elections are now won and lost at the polling unit and no longer at work leisure center, local government, or any other centers. As a matter of fact, let me be very clear that the direction INEC is going is to ensure that winners of election will no longer be determined in court of law. The court of law is not where the winners of election should be determined. Because when Nigerians go to the poll to vote, either in primary elections or in main elections, they are not aware of rules of courts. They are not aware of rules of court. Rules of court are meant for people like us who are lawyers. And that is why we must end the business of post-election adjudication in this country. United Kingdom, Great Britain, that even introduced Nigeria into election rigging on account of what happened even in the First Republic, wherein, while results will still be awaited, winners were being declared. UK moved away from that, such that for a period of 99 years, almost 100 years, until 2010, there had been no post-election adjudication in England, on account of the fact that before these changes took place in England, and we must learn from this, in the United Kingdom, let it be known that the election was not a one-day event in England way back in 1832. Prior to 1832, when an act was enacted, it wasn't used to be so. That was why At that period, there were vote buying. All the things that are happening today, they were happening in England. It was now decided that, look, because election goes on for days, so people could be going to different boroughs to be buying vote and all that. Election should be one day to prevent vote buying. That was why they brought election to one day in England. And even after that, when there's a petitions are taken to the House of Commons. At the House of Commons, because of the majority principle there was no electoral justice. It was on account of that they decided that such matter should not be taken to court. When they took the matter to court in England to be deciding outcome of outcome of election, when vote buying was still very rampant in England, they now discovered that the greatest threat to the rule of law and to subversion of democracy would be the fact that politicians were now struggling to take over the control of the judiciary in England. It was against that background that they had the 1832 Act that was designed to ensure that there must be a reform such that the vote of the people in England must be won at the polling unit, not in a court. That was what led to a situation that led to a reform, so that for a period of 99 years until 2010, there was no post-election education. Now, coming back home here, because Nigeria cannot be in autarky of best practices around the world, that was why INEC, over the years, now decided to design processes, procedure that will bring about electoral accountability so that every vote counted must be taken into account. And even where there are issues, you can go back. This is the beauty of the BVAS. Now, the BVAS, essential features of the BVAS are as follows. One, the BVAS is not a voting machine. Let us be clear on that. But the BVAS is designed to ensure the principle of one person, one vote, accreditation, which is compulsory for everybody who's coming to vote on that day. Now, with that, having ensured the principle of one person, one vote, the implication of that is that there will no longer issue for multiple voting anymore. It has ended the issue about incident form. And please, let me inform here, those who are scamming politicians, there's something they call preloading. There is nothing like preloading of the BVAS. At the end of the poll, the presiding officer is expected, required to use the BVAS, send to the central server as a primary source the entire number of petitions. I've sent some data for you, some infographic, so that Nigeria can follow the argument that has happened in Osun. But as I said, I will be using an example of what happened in Akwa Ibom State. But if you can put that on the screen for Nigerian people to see what happened related to the BVAS. So once that is done, as the BVAS is being used during whenever it is idle, the BVAS on its own will transmit the data of accreditation. It will transmit data of accreditation. But a presiding officer is expected at the end of the close of the poll to ensure that whatever that is left of the BVAS is sent to the central server. Thereafter, the BVAS will be used for the purpose of what we call the upload of the result. You snap the form EC8A, all right, which is just a one-page document. Once that is snapped, you upload it into the INEC result viewing portal, which is going to be live. It's going to be live from the polling unit. That is why we say that by virtue of Section 43 of the current Act, political party candidate, go and get your party agent now. Set up your situation room, because by virtue of Section 60, subsection 4 and 5 of the current Act, a presiding officer is enjoined to give duplicates of that from EC8A to the party agent. And when you also get to the ward level, the ward collection officer is expected under Section 64, subsection 4 of the Act to compulsorily check what is on the BVAS and what is on the form EC8A. Now, back to the issue that I've raised question, which of course, based on lack of knowledge of the BVAS, what it is intended to achieve. I give you an example, and which is what I've sent to you people if you can put it on. And the example I gave is very simple. I am a presiding officer. I am in a polling unit here. And at the end of the poll, the total accreditation was actually 150. Now, in the course of accreditation process, in between, at every interval, as required under INEC regulation, I am expected to continue to upload the data of accreditation over and again. Now, let's assume, for the purpose of understanding of the issues that are completely false raised about the BVAS, that during the course of my accreditation process, I've actually uploaded, sent to the central server, only 70. Remember, the total number of accreditation at the end of the poll was actually 150. I had sent only 70. But at the time when I was doing what you call the sorting and the counting of the ballot paper, the BVAS on its own had now sent additional 30, making it 100. But rather than for me negligently ensuring that the poll have ended before I proceed from that place, making sure that I put the entire data, I failed to do so. Consequently, only 100 with their unique V number had been sent to the central server. Now, when that was sent to the central server, a day or two, as the case may be, thereafter, a candidate in that election showed up in INEC office, now requested for what you call a certified copy of the back-end report from the central server, which is a secondary source that deriving from what you call the primary source. Now, what is expected of any officer at that level is to ensure, first and foremost, find out whether, in respect of this polling unit, I have actually uploaded every accreditation data to the central server. Now, if I fail to have, if they found out that it had not happened, or the officer needed to tell the applicant what to say, could you come back later, today or tomorrow, as the case may be, so that that could be done. Because at the time that request was made, as a commission, you already having the original of from EC8A still in your custody, so you have a duty to check. But in any case, that was not done. And eventually, perhaps, the applicant is saying, give me what you have. I do not have time because I need to file my petition. I need to maintain it. Somehow, to show that I have nothing to hide. Because at any given point in time, if you go back to the BVAS, that data will always be there. The only thing you can do to that BVAS is to destroy it. If you attempt to want to open the system, to tamper with it, there are some specific fields that are there already showing that once you tamper with it, evidence will follow. Now, in this instance, Abuja now decided to give the certified copy of 100 out of 150, which ought not to be. Now, that should be referred to as we call the first report, which they call the first BVAS back-end report, showing 100, which means that if you compare 100, just prima facie, erroneously, if you just look at that, on the face of that, oh, you are likely erroneously to think that there's an overvoting, which is not, because on the form EC8A, duplicate given to people is showing 150. However, when attention has been drawn to the fact that, look, on the form EC8A, duplicate and the original, it is 150, then a call was made to me that, look, Mr. Igini, presiding officer, you have not uploaded the entire accreditation data in your polling unit. All that is required to be done, even if I'm not even there, anybody can open the system. Once you open it, on the face of the BVAS, you are going to log in. Just on the front page, you are going to see the entire 150. Now, when you open it, you will now find out that if you compare what is there, it means that you will now find that the V number of 50 accredited individuals had not been uploaded. If you now add that to the first one, it gives you 150. That now becomes what they refer to as the second report. Now, the third report, finally, is that when now you are at the tribunal, for instance, as it happened in Akwa Ibom, you are now at the tribunal. Now, the tribunal order, this is very common, or candidates or politicians, lawyers who have been involved in election petition, they know that the court will give an order for inspection of material. In this instance, there was an order for the inspection of the BVAS. All right? Now, the BVAS was not inspected. Once you open the BVAS, you are going to see that the total number is 150. If there are 20 of those BVASs and all that, that is what we are going to find. Therefore, in this polling unit, by the time it was checked, it was 150. If it's 150, that becomes what you call the BVAS physical report, which has been given. Okay. What is now left is for the court to make a decision as to between the first one, the second one, and the third one, because the first one was incomplete. The second one was what we call the total aggregation, which of course they refer to as synchronized, which means that they have now added the yet to be uploaded 50 accredited individuals with their unique VIN number, different from the previous 100. This is the difference in what has happened there. So, in effect, may I say this to Nigerians? The reason for my intervention, as always, is that this is a major technology that we are going to use for this election to ensure that the vote of the Nigerian people must count. And we must take into account that the level of massive interest, registration that are taking place, the interest by Nigerians, many of whom are coming out of the country, is on account of this BVAS. And that is why I said that, look, because we are going to use it, there's every need to ensure that if people say the truth about the BVAS, we have a duty to tell when they tell lies about the BVAS, we have the duty to say the truth about the BVAS. This is the entire thing about the BVAS. So the BVAS is one unique technology that has brought tremendous energy of hope, integrity to our electoral process as unequaled in the history of process of accreditation in our country.
Barrister Igini, thank you very much for that detailed analysis. So does this translate to mean that any flaw, discrepancy discovered will only be as a result of human elements? Is that it?
In this respect, I want to point out that on the part of the commission, because it's always good to acknowledge certain things, and that is that the fact that you have not uploaded everything, which in any case does not in any way tamper with what has happened. If I was in a position administratively, they should have marked that first report as interim report, indicating that something was still left to be dealt with. All right? Now, interestingly, you also find out that other candidates, where they won, pulling in that they won, there was also evidence on record in the BVAS showing that those polling units they also won were also not totally uploaded by the presiding officers. I think the lesson from what has happened in Osun, which, as I've said clearly, there is no overvoting in absolute terms, because the BVAS is indeed the primary source that gave birth to the three reports. So, as to the choice of one as against two, which represent the true situation, those are matters for the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court to deal with. My remit, my interest, as always, is a credible process. The process is what I'm interested in. The outcome should be determined by Nigerian people. So with respect to BVAS, all that have been said about BVAS are wholly incorrect. The BVAS is something that all of us must embrace, because the effective power to govern in a democracy lies in legitimate authority that must be acquired through a credible election process. In any election where the vote do not count, election becomes a mere ritual without actually voting. The whole essence and indeed embrace of democracy is essentially because it brings about participation and accountability in the process of human development. That's why we embrace democracy, and that's why democracy itself is not only for development. It has become
Barrister Igini,
both global and national relations.
You know, the off-season elections in Bayelsa and Kogi states come to mind. How can INEC ensure its rules are obeyed fully by its own staff, ad hoc or full-time staff?
Yes, I have made the point over and again. The job of an umpire is not for errand people. It's a public trust. You stand performing a quasi-judicial function, standing as the last line of defense in the question of the will of the people. In any institution, any and all who undermine the integrity of public interest or who undermine the confidence of the public, they must be dealt with. I have not seen and have not read of any society where we have to beg people to do the right thing. Society make progress on the basis of sanction and reward. And that was why those that I warn that under my watch, you must observe the highest principle of ethical standards. When they deviated, staff of INEC, some of them have been dismissed before I left the system. A university professor, individual of presumed integrity, who violated the oath that he took with INEC, today had been convicted and sentenced to 3 years imprisonment. So those who in recent weeks were found engaged in the registration of ineligible individuals, what happened to them? As I speak to you, they are facing the APDC in Abuja, disciplinary committee. Not less than 30 to 40 of them will be dismissed from INEC so that they can go and join those politicians that have encouraged them to undermine the integrity of our electoral system. Look, I must tell you, the leadership recruitment is very key to the survival of our democracy. If we don't fix the politics, you cannot fix the economy. Therefore, the integrity of the process must be protected because the greatest promise of democracy is periodic election that gives a citizen opportunity to make a choice. And I'm so happy at the level of enthusiasm expressed by Nigerians. Before now, many Nigerians will be watching CNN when you are distributing permanent voters card. But today, everybody is going to INEC office looking for PVC. Before now, some of our youth, you find them playing football during registration exercise in Nigeria. That was not the case this time around. They all went to register, collection of PVC everywhere. So this time around, this is an election that will be of its own class. That's going to be different. My call is for my constituency, the judiciary, that must stand tall and mighty in defense of democracy and the rule of law. Today, some of the judgments that are coming out, they go clearly to what Nigeria cannot understand. That we have got to a level where people who didn't participate in primaries are now given a ticket to be candidate in election in our democracy. What are we saying? What are we saying? There was no notice given by virtue of Section 82 that require that for any election to be conducted, you must give 21 days notice to the Independent National Electoral Commission. No notice given. Nobody monitored those elections. They were done in the night. These were basically Nicodemus primaries that have now been affirmed by the court of the land. I can't just believe what is going on. Some that people, the whole world saw. How did it happen? We heard that, election was cancelled. Who cancelled the previous election? And in any case, the one that have been done on the night, in the midnight, who were the people that monitored it? Were the other contestants, were they informed? Was INEC informed? Look, I've said today elsewhere, on issue about party primaries, that we have been on for so long. I say this tonight, that for me, I will comment no more on this, because for too long, we have been on this. Look, there have been so much reform by the Independent National Electoral Commission. Regrettably, there have been no complementary change of behavior, attitude on the part of politicians. Democracy is not about building. Democracy is not about structure. Democracy is about values. They are about principles that are themselves not a final project, that you grab into a society. They are values that over time must be nourished. Today, it must be noted that the first assault to the survival of democracy.
Barrister Igini, now,
assault on the rule of law.
That brings me to my next question, because I must say it is a very, very crucial issue. More party primaries continue to be decided by the court. With about 2 weeks to the elections, what do you think is the impact of this on our elections and democracy at large?
First, on a very good note to the Nigerian people not to be worried about what is going on, even though we have a serious worry perhaps for the future. First, the beauty is that at the moment, we do not use the names of candidates in the printing of the ballot papers. What we use is the logo of the political parties. Now, what kind of order can the court give, having regard to the sanctity of the timelines for the conduct of primaries in Nigeria, particularly with respect to specific provision under the Act? May I say this here, that if matters that are in court now, either at the Federal High Court or the Court of Appeal, which are pre-election matter, or Supreme Court, that have to do with between two candidates, who is actually the real winner of the primaries, this point, the court can declare whoever is actually the rightful owner without having to say, go for another election. But any, apart from Section 34, that have to do with debt, that's the only leg that is left now. Withdrawal period is now all over. What is left is a case of unfortunate death of any candidate, as was the case recently with respect to Abia, where Section 34 was very emphatic that you need, within 40 days, that has to be done. But any other thing apart from that, I'm surprised when I hear that courts are giving orders that fresh primaries to be conducted, something that ought to have ended since June, March, that we ended all those exercises with timeline. At this point in time, court of law should not do so. In fact, the Supreme Court said that it is wrong for the court to extend, that the court do not have the power to extend timeline that are statutorily provided for the conduct of party primary. That is not expected to happen right now. Now, with respect to the campaigns and perhaps the candidate, you'll find that the one that is most settled is the presidential candidates. But shockingly, with respect to senatorial, House of Rep, governorship, we see how most of these matters still being handled in court, most unfortunately. Now, my greatest worry is the expanding empire of our courts in political matters. And that's the point I was making previously about what happened in England. Jonathan Sumption, the retired Supreme Court Justice of England, in one of the series of his lectures, recalling what happened in England, and perhaps sounding warnings to places like Nigeria, was the fact that the expanding empire of courts on political matter, where courts are not being called to answer political questions. The danger in England, why they stopped it, was that over time, politicians will take over the control of judiciary. That politicians will begin to take control. There will be struggle for the control of judiciary. And that where that happens, then democracy will be in a regression. Today, in our country, politicians, they are so proud. They boast. They are the ones that challenge people doing the wrong thing. They say, go to court. They say you must go to court because they also tell you that they are in charge. And that is why sometimes when you see some of the judgment that we see today, you begin to wonder, is there justice in this land? Is there justice in this land? In your remarks, you talked about, you asked a question, is the judiciary see the last of the common man? As a lawyer, I cannot advise otherwise, that people should not go to the court. Because the judiciary in a democracy is the most powerful arm of government. It is that arm to which all, no matter how powerful you must bow. But when we bow sometimes and we lose some of the judgment, we don't lose our sense of sanity at all. What is going on is terrible. What is going on is going to make people in future not to believe in political party primary process in our country. This is a danger to our democracy, that you are deciding a matter that affects constituency on a technical ground. We have now enthroned technicality over substantive justice in our fatherland. This should not happen, because today, when you ask the question, is this still last of the common man? The shibboleth, the slogan of the God be the last of the common man. Today, if you say it, you'll be seen as somebody with a suspect intellect to parrot the slogan, the shibboleth, that the judiciary is now the last of a common man. Many of those who have been messed up, many of who have been disappointed with what is going on today now, when you talk to them, they now tell you that their last hope is God and no longer in God. We should not get to that point at all. We should not get to that point at all. My last point on this is that how come that the judiciary that was so audacious, that was so courageous, that was so fearless under the military, how come when we're under the rule of force, today we are supposed to be under the rule of democracy, under the rule of law, but it will appear that it is the rule of individual that now govern. The rule of law is preferable to the rule of individual, no matter how magnanimous. We must be careful on this, because the rule of law is a graceful ornament to an ordered society. And that is why the rule of law is often seen as the Corinthian capital of a polis society. Without the rule of law, St. Augustine was very clear that society will be nothing but a gang of elite on the loose. That should not happen. In a democracy where the elite repudiate, reject the norms on which democracy is practiced, democracy, according to Zipler, democracy will die. May democracy not die in our fatherland. And that is why, more than ever before, we have no other country other than Nigeria. And that's why we will be undaunted with what the we see and all of that. Because we know that the intolerable situation that some of our elites are creating are necessary conditions for a better tomorrow.
Quite passionate, and I feel your passion about that. Well, let's move on. INEC has expressed worry over impacts the ongoing naira and fuel scarcity could have on conduct of the elections. In your view, how serious is this threat?
Look, my sister, I just told you that my votary is for a cashless election day. And I just told you that because of issue of corruption, part of the reforms that were initiated in INEC was to ensure that we don't deal with cash in INEC. You don't deal with cash in INEC. It's transfer that we deal with. But I said that for any emergency, of course, you may need cash, because I don't want to go into detail of how some of those who were engaged as transporter, how they could hold you to ransom sometimes that will require having to deal with cash. And I said, interestingly, that the Central Bank of Nigeria is where our accounts are domiciled on account of one very bad experience we had. And that's what we'll be using the Central Bank. That's what we'll be using before I left. That's what they're still using. So, and the Central Bank has assured, look, my sister, we should be focusing on our greatest worry. My greatest worry, and I've been saying this for a very long time, my constituency, the judiciary. That's my greatest fear. Today, we have the law. Today, we have the process. Today, Nigerians are fired up. But my constituency, that is where I have my fears. Because my fears are quite historical. We may not have enough time to go into that. But just to tell you that our quest for a fearless, independent, and courageous judiciary that must call justice by its true name will be a meaningless and hopeless clamor if we also do not take steps to protect courageous judges. We have judges, some of the finest in our system, that are so courageous. But you know what happened? Most of them are being intimidated. They intimidate them, they put them under pressure. In fact, many have been frustrated and have to retire from the system. Early this morning, I gave an example of one a judge, and that's very exemplary, which of course, key into what Eugene Elliott, the Austrian jurist, when he declared that there is no guarantee of justice except the personal integrity, values, and principle of a judge. Justice Amazing. This was a judge who stood his ground to do the right thing for justice to be done. This same judge today has retired. They promised him that for failing not, politicians, for failing not to give the kind of judgment they wanted, that he will not be allowed to, will not be elevated to the Court of Appeal, he will not get to the Supreme Court.
All right, Barrister Igini.
But all those whom they used, they were elevated to the extent, finally, that this same judge, at about 9 p.m., he set his fire ablaze with his family. He escaped death. As I speak to you, he had no certificate from primary school, secondary school, university, law school. He had no certificate today. He's now a retired judge. You could see what some of our judges who are in the system, what they are facing right now. They are being intimidated. But unfortunately, for the judiciary, those who have marginalized them, those who have humiliated the judiciary, those who have done all the wrong thing against the judiciary are the ones that their interest is better served by our judiciary. This is my pain and overwhelming reality of our country today. It's very sad.
Quite pathetic. All right. Barrister Igini, it's about 16 days to the conduct of the 2023 elections. What do you think still needed to be done to ensure a credible outcome of this election?
Thank you very much. I've said this before. We have the law. We have process and procedures. Good laws, good innovations are not self-executory. They require people to do so. Today, I have been so encouraged by the way and manner the president himself at the Owerri 3-day IGP conference for senior security. He made profound statements that this election, this 2023 election, must reflect the will of the people. I'm quoting Mr. President. He went further to say that the Nigerian police, all security agencies, they must remain apolitical. They must be neutral. They must be fair and must be committed to democratic ideas. These were the words of the president. In response to your question, what the president needs to do right now is to ensure that on a regular, every week, the president needs to have a meeting with the head of security to deal with the following. One, they need to tell Mr. President specifically their plans with respect to the issue about vote buying. Number two, with respect to area or the flash points that have been mapped out from Abia State by way of alphabetical order to Zamfara State, they have been mapped out. What do they need to do? Because there are actions that must be taken 48 hours to this election, and more importantly, 24 hours to this election. There are some specific steps that the commander-in-chief will need to take into account and must be done. On the part of INEC is doing its own work. Nigerians, get ready for this election.
Well, sadly, we're running out of time. But before I let you go, it's very important for me to ask you this question. And just in 30 seconds, now, after serving your country at INEC, what's next for you?
Thank you very much. What I'm doing now, I'm back to practice because I have a first address. INEC was the second address. When you are done with public service, whatever period given to you, you have to move on. But this project, this 2023 election, is very key for the future of our country. And that is why I decided, as you noted in your remarks, that I must serve Nigerian people because service to humanity is the best work of life. And we must build a society where we all have equal opportunity to share and give not only to ourselves, but for future generations whose faces we are yet to see, whose name we may never know, all of whom should say that in our own time, we did the best thing and left and gave to them one thing, which is nothing but the heritage of all in a society.
Thank you very much.
For all, and responsibility from all.
Thank you very much, Barrister Mike Igini, former resident electoral commission in Akwa Ibom State. I must say it has been an eye-opening episode tonight. Thank you very much for coming on Politics Tonight.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for watching. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But the conversation continues from here. Get in touch with us on Twitter at TVC News NG and at Olajumoke OO. I am Olajumoke Olatuji. Good night.
Doubt and fear doesn't occur at the canvas. It shows in the canvas. It shows the conation of raw earthen material slabbed, stroked, and molded at a pace provided by the doubt and fear. Every move way in the struggle of one to the other, merging the past to the present, brushstrokes of colors seen but not known. For when the wailing stops, the pieces settle down in abject beauty erected for a century of a century. Speaking, advocating, protesting as the arts are meant to be.
Voted as the best TV station of the year. TVC News breaks into the core of every event as they happen. Following all nationwide big and impactful stories. Without the news from every perspective. Covering every human angle. I am Veronica, bringing you the news you would want to watch.
Every major news story is with many perspectives and layered with different levels of impact.
Honey, what time did this happen? We will be right there.
At TVC News, we follow the big and major news, gathering the facts, witnessing the outcome.
I am here live at the aftermath of the approval of the new national minimum wage.
We are TV Station of the Year, not just for breaking news, but for being first, fair and accurate. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Never miss a moment. Instant breaking news from all over the globe. Live streaming of your favorite programs delivered directly to you. Watch anytime from anywhere on your mobile or smart devices. Download the TVC News app today. Available.
Check the mouth. This man is not talking.